Hello everyone. So today we'll be discussing the second topic, oral submucous fibrosis. I already uploaded it once, but due to some mistakes in editing, we are recording this video again. So welcome to my channel, The Bearded Bomb, and I am Dr. Arindam. So let's start. So before starting OSMF, there are three terms that we need to know. Okay? So one is pre-malignant lesions, and the other is pre-malignant conditions, and then there is potentially malignant disorders. Now what are these three terms that we will understand? So who classified all the cancer causing diseases into two categories: pre-malignant lesions or potentially malignant lesions, and pre-malignant conditions or potentially malignant conditions. These terms were coined in 1978, okay, by who? World Health Organization. Okay? Now we'll look into the definitions. A morphologically altered tissue, okay, a morphologically altered tissue in which cancer is more likely to occur than its normal counterpart. This is the definition of pre-malignant lesions. Okay. Now coming to pre-malignant conditions. A generalized state of the body associated with a significantly increased risk of cancer. These two definitions seem like a bit of confusing, almost same but different. So, in 2005, who recommended to abandon these two classifications? In 2005, who said to abandon these two classifications and instead combine both of them into a single term, that is potentially malignant disorders. Okay, in which year? 2005. Who did this? Who only did this? World Health Organization recommended to abandon these two terminologies and instead combine them both and coined a new term, that is potentially malignant disorders. Okay, so potentially malignant disorders, it was defined by who as risk of malignancy. Risk of malignancy being present in a lesion or condition. Lesion or condition. See, both the definitions are combined here. Risk of malignancy being present in a lesion or condition, either at the time of initial diagnosis or at a future date. Okay. So this concludes the introduction of what is pre-malignant lesions, pre-malignant conditions, and after that both of them were combined as potentially malignant disorders. Okay, one more thing. Which were the diseases that were classified under pre-malignant lesions and pre-malignant conditions? Okay. These four were earlier included in pre-malignant lesions: leukoplakia, erythroplakia, stomatitis, and chronic candidiasis. And which were the diseases that were included in pre-malignant conditions? Those were syphilis, oral lichen planus, oral submucous fibrosis, and sideropenic dysphagia. When I am in a flow, I might make some spelling mistakes, so please ignore them and cross check them in your book. So, oral submucous fibrosis. If you see the term, you will get a brief overview of the disease. The term itself says pertaining to the oral cavity. Submucous means below the mucosal membrane or mucosa. Okay, and fibrosis means formation of fibrous bands. So the name itself suggests that it is a disease of oral cavity which occurs below the mucosal layer in the submucosal layer, and it causes fibrosis or formation of fibrous bands. So now we'll come to some historical perspective of this disease. So this disease was first time reported by Schwartz, okay? Reported for the first time by Schwartz, and it was named as Atrophica idiopathica mucosa oris, okay? You will have to learn this name. And then Dr. Joshi named this disease as OSMF. So the term OSMF was given by Dr. Joshi, okay? And then J.J. Pinbog defined OSMF for the first time, okay? J.J. Pinbog provided the definition for the first time. Now what we need to remember here are the years. So Schwartz reported this disease for the first time in 1952, and Dr. Joshi renamed it as OSMF in 1953, and then Dr. J.J. Pinbog provided the definition in 1966. So this is the very big definition given by Pinbog. It may seem a bit scary, but if you will understand this, it will become very easy. Don't worry, I am there for that. So we'll learn it in parts. The first part is, it is an insidious chronic disease affecting any part of the oral cavity and sometimes the pharynx. Okay, we'll do up to this only. So it is an insidious chronic disease affecting any part of the oral cavity and sometimes the pharynx. So there is this term called insidious. What is insidious? Insidious means the development of the disease is so subtle, so slow that you are not aware of this disease happening in your oral cavity. मतलब धीरे धीरे it will develop slowly in your mouth, and you will not be aware of its development. You will be aware on that stage when it becomes very painful. Okay, like, doctor, it's paining, I think something is there, it's paining. Before that, for 6, 7, 8 years long term, you will not having any knowledge, you will not be having any knowledge of its development. So the development is very slow and subtle, okay, that the patient is not aware of. So coming to the second part, it is always associated with juxtaepithelial inflammatory reaction. So there is this juxtaepithelial. What is juxtaepithelial? Juxta is a Latin word which means nearby. Latin word which means nearby. So it is associated with inflammatory reaction nearby the epithelium layer. Okay. Now followed by fibroelastic changes of the lamina propria. Okay. Lamina propria. Now for people who don't know lamina propria, I'll give you a brief explanation. So our oral cavity is lined by mucosa. Okay, oral cavity is lined by mucosa. Suppose this is mucosa, oral cavity, this is mucosa. Okay, so mucosa has 3 basic layers. First one, the uppermost layer or the outermost layer is the epithelium. Okay, after that there is something called as basement membrane. Okay, and below that there is lamina propria. Okay, so it affects the lamina propria. So it is always associated with juxtaepithelial inflammatory reaction followed by fibroelastic changes in the lamina propria with epithelial atrophy. Now what is atrophy? Atrophy means degeneration. Okay, so lamina propria will be affected and epithelium will be degenerated, leading to stiffness of oral mucosa. So oral mucosa will become stiff. Why stiff? Because there are formation of fibroelastic bands causing trismus. What is trismus? Painful mouth opening or difficulty in mouth opening and inability to eat. Okay, if you have any doubts, please ask in the comment section. So it is an insidious chronic disease affecting any part of the oral cavity and sometimes the pharynx. It is always associated with juxtaepithelial inflammatory reaction followed by fibroelastic changes of the lamina propria, okay, with epithelial atrophy leading to stiffness of oral mucosa and which causes trismus and inability to inability to eat. So this concludes the definition. Now we'll move to the next part. So the etiology of OSMF is broadly divided into two types of factors: local factors and systemic factors. So within systemic factors, there are three most important probable factors. They are nutritional deficiency, genetic predisposition, and autoimmunity. We will write it like this only, that systemic factors, in that there are nutritional deficiency, genetic predisposition means familial trait of getting OSMF, and then autoimmunity. In nutritional deficiency, we will remember B complex 1 and the other is defective iron metabolism. Okay, B complex का deficiency and there is defective iron metabolism, but still for defective iron metabolism no concrete evidence have been found. It is suggested. So you can write these 2 points within nutritional deficiency. Okay, now we will discuss about the local factors. So coming to the local factors, the first one is the excessive consumption of red chilies. Okay, so excessive consumption of red chilies, what it releases, you should know the name of the chemical, releases capsaicin. Okay, capsaicin. Now what this capsaicin does, it produces hypersensitivity reactions in the oral mucosa. Hypersensitivity reactions in oral mucosa. Pay attention, students, to this point. Excessive areca nut chewing. So what is areca nut? Areca nut is nothing but supari. You know supari or betel nut? Betel nut, that one is put in pan and everything. So areca nut is the whole fruit of betel nut. So excessive areca nut chewing. Now there I will write an important point here. It is the single most important factor for causing OSMF. Okay, single most important factor, excessive areca nut chewing. So what this does, it contains two types of chemicals. Areca nut contains two types of chemicals. One is alkaloids, okay, and the other is flavonoids. Predominantly it is alkaloids. Okay, so there are two chemicals specifically, arecolin and arecadin. Arecolin and arecadin. These two chemicals are released while chewing areca nut, and they stimulate, these two chemicals stimulates the fibroblast cells. Which cells? The fibroblast cells of the lamina propria. Okay. What this does? This stimulate fibroblast cells. Of lamina propria. LP is lamina propria. So, arecholine and arachidine, they stimulate the fibroblast cells of the lamina propria, and this in turn produces excessive amount of collagen. This is a short overview of the pathogenesis also. We will come to pathogenesis now. So, for now, in etiology there are systemic factors, there are local factors. Local factors: excessive consumption of red chilies, chemical name is capsaicin, it causes hypersensitivity reactions in oral mucosa. Excessive areca nut chewing, single most important factors. The chemicals containing inside this is alkaloids and flavonoids, predominantly alkaloids. Alkaloids, the main chemicals are arecholine and arachidine, which stimulate the fibroblast cells of the lamina propria, and which in turn stimulates excessive production of collagen. Excessive production of collagen. Okay. So there is another point here. OSMF is also associated with certain collagen disorders. That is, and which are the disorders? IRS. Okay. IRS is, IRS कोई दे रहे हो तो पता होगा, UPSC वाले, Indian Revenue Services. So IRS, this stands for I for intestinal fibrosis. Okay. I for intestinal fibrosis. R for rheumatoid arthritis. Okay. And S for scleroderma. Okay. This you can add in a separate box. We have talked about the etiology. Now we will discuss the pathogenesis. So it is not an exact pathogenesis, but it is a very simplified version of the pathogenesis which have been prepared by me for you people to understand. If you want, you can learn this in your exam sheets. If you don't want, you don't learn, don't write, but just for your better understanding, I have prepared this very simplified, actually oversimplified pathogenesis. See, I could have added like TNF alpha and other growth factors and interleukin 6, interleukin 8. There are many things that I could have added, but it will not serve your purpose of understanding in brief, in concise, and it will make your preparation much more harder, and I don't want to do that. I just want you to learn it in a very easy, simplified way so that you can excel in your third year final year university exams. So this is very simplified pathogenesis which I will describe now, explain to you now. See, there will be people who will to flaunt their knowledge, not to provide you with the necessary knowledge, but this is where we come in. We filter unnecessary knowledge and provide to you only the part that is necessary and optimum for you, so that you can prepare all the other thousands of topics in a very crisp, clear, concise way, so that you can write them in your exams. You don't have to listen to all the unnecessary knowledge available in the world because you are not doing PG in OSMF. You have to learn other thousands of topics, right? So we will focus on only what is very important, and what is less important that we will exclude for now. Okay. So coming to the simplified pathogenesis. Again, I am telling you, this is not the exact pathogenesis. This is only for your understanding, right? So coming to this. So the main etiological factor was excessive areca nut chewing, and the chemicals were alkaloids and flavonoids. Okay. So continuous exposure to areca nut constituents. suppose I am keeping the supari or areca nut here, okay, then this area will be in continuous exposure. So what will happen, the surface will be eroded and absorption of those chemicals into the mucosa will take place, and then those chemicals will undergo subsequent metabolism, right? After that, what will happen, there will be chemical irritation because of continuous exposure to these harmful hazardous chemicals, okay. In addition to that, there will be mechanical irritation also. Chemical irritation is done by arecoline, arecadine, okay, but mechanical irritation by the coarse fibers of the areca nut, okay. The fibers of the areca nut will cause mechanical irritation of that portion of mucosa, and which will lead to microtrauma, means trauma at very microscopic level, very small erosions, fat jana type of, okay. Imagine kapda, cloth, a piece of cloth, micro erosions in that cloth, similarly, kind of similarly like that, and it will cause microtrauma. And as a result of that, what will happen, it will facilitate diffusion of those alkaloids and flavonoids into subepithelial connective tissue, means this was the barrier, here microtrauma happened, so pores, kind of pores are formed, so the chemicals will diffuse into the subepithelial connective tissue, okay. So after that, what will body do as a response, it will try to fight the foreign chemicals. Then what process will start, inflammation will start, right? Inflammation. So juxtaepithelial inflammatory cell infiltration will start, okay, and as a result of this, synthesis of inflammatory mediators, that is synthesis of mediators of inflammation, okay. For example, IL-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, etc., etc. We will not go into details of this as it is not required in your level. If you need further knowledge, you can refer to Burkett, you can refer to Gomes, okay. So what will these inflammatory mediators do? It will increase the synthesis of collagen in one or other way. It will increase collagen synthesis. So what will happen? Fibrosis will increase, okay. So this is a very simplified pathogenesis of OSMF for you to understand. If you want, you can write this, and this is not present in my notes also. I have prepared it a day before only, okay. So take a screenshot and you can add it. Now we will discuss the clinical features in two steps. One is early OSMF and the other is advanced OSMF. So early OSMF clinical features can also be called as, somewhere in book you will come with this term, prodromal symptoms, okay. Prodromal symptoms. These are the prodromal symptoms, means early symptoms, okay. So before coming to early OSMF, we will come to these three things. We will start the clinical feature with these three things: age, sex and site. So mean age of occurrence is 20 to 40 years, okay. Sex is female predilection, means female are more commonly affected. Female predilection. Site, what are the sites which affect OSMF? B, M, R, S, T, U, L. BMR and stool, these are the sites. How you will remember? Buccal mucosa, retromolar area, okay. This is buccal mucosa, this is retromolar area, okay. This is soft palate, this is tongue, uvula and lips, okay. So BMR, stool, buccal mucosa, retromolar area, soft palate, tongue, uvula and lips. These are the sites. Now after this, after writing this, we will come to the prodromal symptoms or symptoms of early OSMF. First symptom is burning sensation. Burning sensation while specially consuming spicy food, okay. When we will consume spicy food, the burning sensation will be more visible, okay. Increased salivation or decreased salivation, both things can happen. Defective gustatory sensation. What is gustatory? Gustatory means sensation of taste, okay. Taste sensation will be defective. Formation of petechial spots. What is petechia? They are reddish blue blisters, very small size reddish blue blisters. Okay, not actually blisters. They are reddish blue spots, very small reddish blue spots. They are transient. What do you mean by transient? Transient means appear for a very small period of time. Okay, reddish blue spots, they are very transient and they need no treatment. No separate treatment is required for petechial spots. Okay, next is appearance of vesicles. Appearance of vesicles, it is incomplete kind of. Appearance of vesicles specially over the palate. Okay, appearance of vesicles specially over the palate. Now you will ask, what is vesicles? Vesicles are this. Suppose this is the surface, this is the skin surface or mucosal surface to be precise. Vesicles are small fluid filled lesions. Okay, small fluid filled lesions, elevated lesions. Okay, and which are less than 1 centimeter in diameter. Okay, so small fluid filled lesions less than 1 centimeter in diameter. What are they? They are called as vesicles. Okay, now if this fluid filled lesion size is more than 1 centimeter, then it is called as bulla. B-U-L-L-A-E, bulla or bulle. Okay, so if the size is less than 1 centimeter, it is vesicle. If it is more than 1 centimeter, it is called as bulla. So appearance of vesicles especially over the palate. So there is a separate chapter known as vesiculobullous lesions in oral medicine. We will discuss them in detail when we will talk about that chapter. So coming to, after early OSMF or the prodromal symptoms, we will discuss the advanced OSMF. Okay, so coming to the clinical features of advanced OSMF. So as you can see, the first point is, as the disease progresses, there is blanching of the oral mucosa. Okay, and the oral mucosa becomes slightly opaque and there are formation of white fibrous bands. This is the first feature of advanced OSMF. So there is a characteristic appearance of advanced OSMF which is called as marble-like appearance. So you should remember this term, marble-like appearance. Okay, so blanching of oral mucosa becomes opaque and white fibrous bands appear, and this appearance is called as marble-like appearance or lace-like appearance. Now the density of fibrous deposit varies from, the density of fibrous deposit can vary from very less deposition like slightly whitish area on the soft palate which causes no significant symptoms. Okay, and as the disease progresses, this is progression, it can also be up to a very dense fibrosis causing fixation, shortening and deviation of uvula as well as soft palate. Okay, so density of fibrous deposit can vary from this extreme to this extreme. Okay, now coming to third point, gradual stiffening of oral mucosa. So as the fibrous deposits increase, the oral mucosa becomes gradually more and more stiff. Okay, with loss of tissue resiliency. What is resiliency? Flexibility, loss of tissue flexibility. Okay, after that what is there? There is fibrosis of pterygomandibular region. Fibrosis in the pterygomandibular region means the region of pterygoid muscle and the ramus of mandible, often leading to trismus. Trismus, as told earlier, painful mouth opening. Now the next point is impairment of tongue movement, means restriction. Impairment means restricted tongue movement. Okay, and atrophy meaning degeneration of tongue papilla. So it's like, in normal cases the tongue surface is like this. Okay, these are the papilla, filiform, fungiform. Okay, tongue surface is papillated. Okay, but in this case the tongue surface becomes like this. Okay, depapillated. What it is called? Depapillated. Okay, it is one of the features of OSMF, advanced OSMF. Depapillated tongue means smooth tongue, devoid of all the papillas. That is it. Atrophy of tongue papilla. Okay, depapillated tongue. This is papillated, this is depapillated. You can add this as a small diagram to get that extra attention to your paper. Okay, next is involvement of nasopharynx. If the fibrosis extends up to the nasopharynx, then the patient will experience referred pain to ear. Referred pain. If you don't know what is referred pain, means pain not in the origin of the disease, means somewhere else. Like, for example, if you are two friends staying in a room, one friend has got a breakup, but you will also feel the pain for your friend. That means that is referred pain to your heart, right? So next is, okay, next point is extreme cases. In extreme cases, what happens? Uvula gives a hockey stick or a bird-like appearance. Okay, so normally the uvula is this. Okay, but in extreme cases, what happens? Atrophy of uvula also occurs. This is bird-like uvula. Okay, very small bird-like uvula, or it can be this hockey stick appearance. Okay, deviation. This is only deviation which I talked earlier. Okay, so this finishes the clinical features. Now we will discuss about the staging given by Pinbock. So coming to the clinical staging by Pinbock. Okay, so Pinbock given 3 stages. The first is stage of stomatitis and vesiculations. The second stage is stage of fibrosis, and the third stage is stage of sequel and complications. Okay, so in the first stage, what you will write is oral mucosa shows erythema with presence of vesicles, ulcers and petechiae. We have already discussed this in clinical features in the early stages. Now, second is stage of fibrosis. Fibrosis in the healing vesicles and ulcers. Now, after the formation of vesicles and ulcers, they start healing, and there, as a process of healing, fibrosis occurs and blanching is observed. Okay, now the third stage is stage of sequel and complications. Here, in the stage of sequel and complication, fibrosis with additional presence of leukoplakia and erythroplakia. Okay, this is the Pinbock staging, clinical staging. Okay, then there is another one staging which was given by Khanna and Andrade in 1995. That staging was based on clinical features as well as histopathological features. But in order to not make this video very lengthy, I will suggest you go through that chart in the book and learn from it. In case you have any doubts, please ask in my Instagram or here in the comment section. I will be clearing any doubt if you have in that portion. So we will be straightforwardly moving to the histopathology. Okay, now histopathology is very important for BDS third year students. If there is if this question comes in 5 marks question, like short essay, 5 or 4 marks, then you don't have time to write all these things. So when you don't have time to write all these things, 3 or 4 portions that you will write must is definition, if there is any classification, and after that etiology, after that clinical features in short, and the most important part of your answer will be histopathological diagram and its explanation. That is mandatory for third year students. Okay, final year students writing oral medicine paper, you don't need to write histopathological portion. Instead of that, you will write the radiographic interpretation or radiographic analysis. Okay, so coming to the histopathology of OSMF. So the first point is all the changes that will happen in the epithelium. If we see the slides, we will see the epithelium first, but in actual condition, the tissue changes in the epithelium are secondary to changes in connective tissue. Means the first changes are occurring in the connective tissue, and the changes that are occurring in the epithelial surface or epithelium level, that are secondary to the changes in the connective tissue. Okay, so what happens in OSMF? Fibrous bands formation in lamina propria. So excessive collagen in underlying lamina propria causes an upward pressure which results in the atrophy of the epithelium with flattening of rete ridges. We can see in the diagram, this is atrophy of epithelium with flattening of rete ridges. Okay, and after that there is this connective tissue. Connective tissue shows juxtaepithelial hyalinization. This is juxtaepithelial hyalinization. The red portion is juxtaepithelial hyalinization. Okay. Next is these red lines. These are dense bundle of collagen fibers. Collagen fibers are there in connective tissue, deposition of collagen fibers. Okay. These are dense bundle of collagen fibers. Okay. So because of the fibrosis of the connective tissue, the blood vessels become narrowing of blood vessels because of excess deposits of the fibrosis of connective tissue. Okay, so after that the next point is degeneration of muscle fibers due to lack of nutrient supply. These are the muscle fibers. Okay, these are the muscle fibers. These are the muscle fibers which are showing degeneration due to lack of nutrient supply. So this will be muscle fibers showing degeneration. Okay. These are dense bundles of collagen fibers. Okay, this is juxtaepithelial hyalinization. Okay, and this is atrophic epithelium without retipex. Okay, these are the labelings. Now a pro tip. When you will draw this diagram in exam sheet, it's going to take a hell lot of time. So to save time, what you can do is, instead of this one, you can do it like this. Just make the cells a bit bigger. So less number of cells will be required to draw this portion of area. You can see the difference. Okay, so exams make the cells a bit bigger, so more area will be occupied and less time will be taken. Okay, so this clears the histopathology. Now we will move to some blood investigations. So investigations of blood reports of individuals affected with OSMF gave various hematological abnormalities like an increase in erythrocyte sedimentation rate, as well as increase in anemia, eosinophilia, increase in gamma globulins also, and there is a decrease in serum iron and an increase in total iron binding capacity. Okay, so these are some of the hematological abnormalities that have been recorded in patients. So coming to the management of OSMF, still now there is no standardized treatment protocol for management of OSMF. So we will describe the management of OSMF under these subheadings. So first is the restriction of habit. You can also call it behavioral management or behavioral therapy. That means patient will be advised to stop the habits. अरेका नट chewing को रोकना होगा. Okay. Next is supportive therapy. That means nutritional counseling. Patient will be advised for a vitamin-rich diet along with iron preparations. Okay. Vitamin-rich diet with iron preparation. And then there is iodine and B complex. Okay, iodine and B complex. It is known as injection. It will be injected intramuscular. Ranodine. Okay, ranodine. IM intramuscular. Okay. Now coming to medicinal therapy and surgical management. we will describe these two after going through them. Okay, so next is the laser. In laser, what we do is we use a CO2 laser. Okay, CO2 laser is used to incise the buccal mucosa. Okay, CO2 laser is used to incise the buccal mucosa and then vaporize the submucosal connective tissue. Okay, CO2 laser is used to incise the buccal mucosa and then vaporize the submucosal connective tissue up to the level of buccinator muscle. Okay, next is oral physiotherapy. It is used in mild to moderately advanced cases. Moderately advanced cases. Okay, it is used in mild to moderately advanced cases. Next, coming to cryosurgery. Okay, freezing it in situ. Okay, it is a method of tissue destruction by freezing it in situ. Okay, next is diathermy. Diathermy also used for mild to moderately advanced cases. Moderately advanced cases, and it acts by physiofibrinolysis of bands. Means the fibrous bands are broken physically. Okay, diathermy. So this finishes all of them. So we will now describe the main point, that is medicinal management, and after that the surgical management. So coming to the medicinal management, these 5 are the medicinal therapy. First is the steroids, then is the placental extracts, then hyaluronidase, lycopene and interferon gamma or gamma interferon. First we will describe the steroids. So steroids can be given by 2 routes, local as well as systemic routes. Okay, for local we use injection of hydrocortisone and procaine hydrochloride in the area of fibrosis. Okay, the injections are given fortnightly after 15 days. Okay, so hydrocortisone and procaine hydrochloride injection for local treatment using steroids. For systemic, we can use tablet hydrocortisone. Doses will be 25 mg and 100 mg per day. Okay, and instead of this we can also use dexamethasone or triamcinolone. Now coming to placental extracts, also called as Placentrax. Okay, so it is an biogenic stimulator. So what does this particular biogenic stimulator does? It accelerates cellular metabolism. Okay, and also stimulates the regenerative process. So in turn it also accelerates wound healing. Okay, so hyaluronidase, what it does, it breaks down the hyaluronic acid. Okay, so hyaluronidase breaks down hyaluronic acid, and which in turn prevents collagen formation. Okay, so collagen formation is prevented. Okay, so what will happen eventually? Burning sensation will be relieved because health of oral mucous membrane will improve. Health of oral mucous membrane will improve. Okay. So hyaluronidase क्या कर रहा है? It breaks down hyaluronic acid, so it will prevent collagen formation. Now the health of the oral mucous membrane will improve, and as a result, burning sensation will be relieved or decreased. Next is lycopene. Lycopene is an antioxidant. Okay. And its dosage is 2000 microgram for 3 months. Okay. Next we will talk about gamma interferon. It acts on the fibroblasts and inhibits collagen synthesis. Okay. It acts on the fibroblast and inhibits collagen synthesis. Hence, it is used as an intralesional injection. Intralesional injection. Injected in the lesion directly. Okay. Intralesional injection of gamma interferon. What it will do? It will act on the fibroblast and inhibit the collagen synthesis. Thus, in turn, what it will do? It will reduce mucosal burning. It will reduce the mucosal burning, and it will also improve the mouth opening. It will improve the mouth opening. Okay. So intralesional injection of gamma interferon, what it will do? It will act on the fibroblast and it will inhibit the collagen synthesis. So it will be injected intralesionally and it will result in improving the mouth opening and it will relieve the mucosal burning sensation. And the drug name is pentoxyphylline, 400 mg 3 times daily. Okay. This finishes the medicinal therapy. Now we will talk about the surgical management. So surgical management, when we will do? When medicines are not sufficient or when it has reached to certain stage where medicinal, supportive, behavioral and all these therapies are not working, then only we will opt for surgical management. So surgical management will be indicated when biopsy reveals neoplastic changes and when there is a very marked limitation in mouth opening. So the flaps will be nasolabial flap, buccal pad of fat and temporalis facial flap. And in addition to these procedures, we can also do temporalis myotomy, coronoidectomy or removal of third molar to improve the condition of the patient. Temporalis myotomy means sectioning or division of a muscle. Here it is temporalis muscle. Coronoidectomy means sectioning of the coronoid process. So this will help in recovering the limited mouth opening. Okay. So this covers the topic OSMF. I have tried my best to make it in a gist. Yes, there may be many important points that are left behind. I will suggest you to go through the textbook once. I have used Schaeffer's, Burkitt and Gom. These 3 books I have used for making these contents. And like, comment, subscribe. कैसा लगा बताओ comments में. Please let me know how I can improve and what are the, if you have any doubts and all. Thank you so much. All the best.